Good evening and welcome. We are having the Fishers Advisory Committee on Disability. I'm one of the co-chairs, Kelly Hartman, and unfortunately, or fortunately, however you see it, but I would be scared if I were you, Cecilia could not be with us this evening last minute, so she left me in charge. So first of all, we will do a call to order and roll call.
Thank you, Kelly. As you said, Cecilia is not with us tonight, so I will start with Kelly.
I'm here.
Thank you. Wilbur? Stacy?
Here.
Darcy?
Here.
Chrissy? Michelle? Here. Shelby?
Here.
And Ross?
Here.
Did I get all the members? Thank you.
We need to do an approval of previous meeting minutes from our April 12th meeting. Do we have those minutes?
They are embedded in the agenda as an attachment.
For those of you watching and here, this is all new to us, so I haven't read the minutes. Did anybody else read the minutes? Can we defer the reading and the review of the minutes until our next meeting?
Yes.
So we have a great agenda tonight with some awesome guest speakers, but before that, we have a committee member that is going to be leaving a little bit early for a previous commitment, so I'm going to turn the floor over to Wilbur Sutton, who is our Housing Committee Chair. And each of you, since this, we're getting new into this structure with committee reports tonight. I know we don't have official committees yet, and we will talk about that. But some of you have been active in doing some of the activities that are in your purview and will continue to be in your purview now and moving forward. So Wilbur, we can talk about housing, and I'll turn it over to you.
I'll be quick. I attended a suburban housing conference. Okay, there we go. Sorry about that. We attended a suburban housing conference for Hamilton County on May the 4th. It was pretty informative. We learned a lot of things about strategy, how to increase and diversify housing, how to do partnerships, public, private, and philanthropic. We learned about alternative funding opportunities like community land trust and housing trust funds. And those are just some of the ideas that they've thrown out to try to give us opportunities in Hamilton County and obviously in Fishers to make a difference. One of the things that we identified overall is accessible housing and affordable housing is short, and we'd like to try to deal with that. So I know Cecilia has us in the middle of a study, and I think Ross is involved in that. That's ongoing, and we'll know more after we get the results of that. So that's kind of it in a nutshell.
I do have a question. This is Stacy Oldham. I don't know if it's you or it is Ross, but on that particular study, has it started yet? Is there still opportunity to put in any questions at all?
Yeah, so Ross Hillary speaking on behalf of Megan Vukasic, who's the Director of Planning and Zoning. I have a slight update for the housing study, which I will give later on, but there are still opportunities. It has started, but the housing consultant is still looking for additional feedback. So if there's someone in particular that you'd like for them to talk to,
yes,
maybe.
I'm going to give that in my presentation.
Okay.
That was the reason I was
Yep.
clarifying.
I know I had my official interview with her already, and she is located, I believe, in the Philadelphia area. And so we were able to connect her directly to Rhonda Shrewsbury with Real America, Jacob Sipe, who is the Executive Director of the Indiana Housing and Community Development Authority at a state level to really look at some things. Wilbur, you were on the list of connectees. We had some really good conversations. One thing I would encourage all of you to think about in housing is that a term called pocket communities is what we hear of a lot, which is communities that are segregated in some way for folks with intellectual and developmental disabilities, which is a portion of what you guys are learning more about. And I did just get a stance from the state of Indiana and the Division of Disability and Rehabilitative Services on how the state would take a stand on pocket communities, because there are communities that are all private pay, where families will private pay for an individual to live in a community such as this. But then there's some hope that there is integrated within that community the opportunity for people who are receiving services, which may be through the Division of Disability and Rehabilitative Services, as well as BDDS, which is the Bureau of Developmental Disability Services. So folks on the waiver who would like to have an opportunity, but may be excluded from a pocket community depending on how we develop it, right? So just keep in mind there's a lot of different things. I will share with the entire committee their beginning stance on how they see the policy shaping up regarding pocket communities, because there really are opinions all over the place. And while you guys are doing an amazing job collecting information from other states, the thing to keep in mind is that the settings rule, which is a rule that is negotiated at each state's level with CMS, which is the Center for Medicaid and Medicare Services, is state dependent. So what we might learn from Arizona may not be applicable here. What we may learn from Texas may not be applicable here, depending on service delivery and the settings rule and what state plan has been submitted. So I will continue to give you guys as much information as I can as it relates to your ongoing study. But I think the great thing right now is that Fishers has, in the city in partnership with this committee, has put the money forth for that in-depth study. One thing they did share with me, they just thought it was unbelievable that a municipality, like a city, at the city level, would be so interested to move forward with a study like this, that's really unusual. So thank you, Wilbur, for your input, and we look forward to continuing to hear things from you.
I know, I think one of the things we were talking about in the pocket community too was potentially those were tied to a particular provider, and we were trying to figure out if there was a way to keep that open. So that was just one of our concerns.
Even pocket communities now that are perhaps owned by a provider or developed in partnership with a provider, Villages of Marici is a prime example, because they have for long operated a community in the Fort Bend area and are partnering with IHCDA and their developer there for the Carmel community. They still have to, if they want to serve people on the waiver, they still have to allow people in that community to have choice. It's part of the federal rule, so it gets a little convoluted. There's a lot of rules. So Ross, would you like to introduce our first guest speaker?
So this is actually thanks to Stacy, so props for you on this one. But tonight we have invited Hatem Meki, who is a city engineer. He's the Assistant Director of Engineering for the City of Fishers here. And he's just going to speak for a couple minutes about an intersection case study that Stacy brought to our attention as a community. And with some quick action, Hatem was able to make some progress on it. So Hatem Meki.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Hatem Meki, Assistant Director of Engineering, and thanks, Ross, for inviting me, and thank you, Stacy, for all the communications that we've had. For the intersection case study this evening, we're going to talk about 131st and Parkside. So I'm just going to explain how the things came about, how the process went, and how that would be the normal process that you would kind of follow in any of the ADA situations that we would have in the city. So Stacy found out that there's an issue with an intersection, 131st and Parkside, where there was no ADA ramps that crosses 131st Street. So she had mentioned this issue to Ross, who is our ADA coordinator, and he then forwarded that concern to us in engineering, to myself. So the best case scenario was that we have a project in that area, which is 131st and State Road 37. So in our, so once I fielded that concern, we looked at the intersection and we knew that there is something that we can fix within this project. Within our limits of that project was kind of just a little bit west of 131st and Parkside. So we extended the resurfacing limits past the intersection, which included touching those two ramps on the south side. So that in turn would trigger having to make those two ADA compliant. So we added those two, the existing two ramps and the future two ramps that go across 131st Street, that we would reconstruct those and make them ADA accessible and also construct those two ramps. There was also an issue that Stacy had brought up with the PED buttons, that they are not audio inclusive, I guess. So that was also, we had noticed that there was an issue in that intersection, and we had already purchased those buttons from before. We were just waiting until we finished the project, and we put those in the PED facilities there. So that's kind of the process. That this is a success story. Obviously, it just so happened that there was a project in that area that we were able to include that in there, and we actually have started work on those two ramps as of today, and they should be able to pour them tomorrow. And once we finish those and we get the road resurfaced, we'll be able to put the PED buttons on the poles.
I can just jump in there. For those who don't know that area, Superior Van and Mobility has been one of our committee sponsors. Oh, is it? Okay, sorry. The Superior Van and Mobility has been one of our committee sponsors for a long time, and that area is where their business is, so there's a lot of activity. Some of their employees who use that intersection to cross and go to Walmart or to get its, Popeye's chicken or something like that. So it came to light that way. I think that what I really hope that we could highlight is the fact that as we're building it in, and we do this as a city, and we see projects that are ongoing, we're always under construction here, that if that happens, as this did, then you're not rebuilding, you're not redoing, you're not retooling, and the budget can be a lot less expensive. Not to say these aren't already things that are considered in some of these projects, but if we have our eyes and ears open, this is around the corner from Wilbur and I, where we live, that's one thing that we can do as a committee and as volunteers to bring this to the attention. And there is a formal process now, and we just tested it. It works. We got the right people involved at the right time. The intersection's about to open. At least we can go one way on 37 now anyway, from 131st Street. And so I'm really glad that we're able to show it works. When we're involved, it works, and that this committee's role in that is very important. So thanks for being here.
No problem. And I just wanted to highlight one other thing that we yearly we have in our budget resurfacing projects, and included in these resurfacing projects are ADA upgrades to all of the facilities in the resurfaced areas. So let's say, for example, we come in Sunblest and we resurface all of Sunblest in our yearly resurfacing program. We look at all of the curb ramps and all of the intersections there and what we can do to make them ADA compliant. We always have to be up to date with what the ADA regulations are. So we're bound, if we do go in there and resurface, we look at all of these ADA components and we upgrade them as we see, if needed, that we go in and upgrade all of those facilities. So we do have a program in our budget, in our program every year with the resurfacing that we go in and we adjust all of these ADA ramps and ADA components. So that's our yearly program. In addition, if anything comes from the committee, we try to add them as much as possible. With our budget constraints, we try to add them as much as we can. So this was a great idea to include that in this project, because it saves us a lot of money in the future.
I think also, just anybody who's listening, who might be in a neighborhood that there's something that needs to be done, knowing that those things can be raised to you, Ross Hillary, and as the ADA coordinator. And so those things are available as well, and the committee does get directed to something like that. I believe that's currently in my purview. I don't know if that's going to remain that way, but just in case someone's listening that says, I have an idea or I have something I need to bring up.
Yeah, Stacy, you're correct. So the city website, and if you search on there and look for ADA compliance, my email will pop up. And then if anyone has any concerns with their neighborhood, please feel free to send me an email, and I'll find, similar to this instance, the right venue for it to go to. So thanks for bringing it up, Stacy.
Thank you for joining us. Our next guest speaker is from Safe and Home, and I know several of you, whether you have in your care someone with aging issues, an elder, someone who needs additional support, and you're just wearing thin as a family member, or perhaps somebody with an intellectual, developmental, or physical disability, that you're trying to find ways for them to really be more independent. I know many of you have heard of remote supports, and so we wanted to provide an opportunity for you to learn a little bit more about what that means. Safe and Home is one service available here locally, and Patty Gant is here to talk from Safe and Home about remote supports.
Hello, is my mic on? It is. Thank you. Thanks, Ross. Hi, I'm Patty Gant, and like Kelly said, I am from Safe and Home. Thank you for inviting me tonight. Thank you, Kelly, for reaching out. This is an awesome opportunity. We are a remote support company that works with individuals with intellectual disabilities. And we were added to the waiver about 2 years ago, actually 2 years in July. With the staffing crisis throughout the country, and not just in Indiana, we needed as a state to find other alternatives to provide support to individuals with disabilities and not just in-person staff. So our company was added to the waiver 2 years ago. We fall under the Family Support Waiver and the CIH waiver. I'm gonna just say, thank you. Thank you. Just real quick about me, I worked in some kind of provider capacity for most of my career. Right out of college, I started at New Hope of Indiana, and at that time, we were a 200-person institution. I was part of the team that closed that in the mid-90s and moved over 200 people out into the community. And back in the 90s, the dream was for individuals with intellectual disabilities to live self-directed lives and as independent as possible. And as the years have gone by, now it's been 20 plus years, I'm gonna date myself, but we've really kind of stuck to that in-person staffing model. With Safe and Home, we are allowing individuals the dignity of risk and moving into a situation where maybe they can have some alone time or just some remote supports instead of always having that in-person staffing. So our mission at Safe and Home is just to empower people with intellectual and developmental disabilities to live independently in their own homes and in their communities. One thing I do want to mention before I start a quick film is that remote supports is not replacing human beings. That's not what we're doing. We are a trained workforce, and we connect and support people through technology. We have many different types of technology that I could not even share them all. I don't even know them all. Basically, what I like to do is, if you can dream it, we can support it. I meet with the individual, I figure out what the needs are, what their goals are, what they're looking for to complete an independent life, and then we figure things out from there. So it's not a one-size-fits-all. It's really exclusive to the individual. I'm gonna go ahead and start Emma's, yes, Kelly Hartman.
Before you show the video, which I've seen before, which the video is about services for people with intellectual and developmental disabilities, I want to clarify that families can do this without the waiver via
Correct.
private pay.
Correct.
And Safe and Home actually has a long history of helping elders as well, so it doesn't necessarily have to be it could be your mom that needs a little extra support so that you can still work. So just have that in your mind. There's a lot of possibilities here before Patty rolls the clip.
Yeah, and thank you, Kelly, for reminding me there's a world outside of the waiver world. So I do appreciate that. We did start out as a senior company helping seniors, and we do have other sorts of funding. And one thing that's kind of exciting that is really starting to gain a lot of speed is Anthem in many states, and there are talks in Indiana, are starting to include the service. And in Tennessee, it has just gone bonkers. So people are using Anthem insurance to pay for remote supports for their loved ones with or without an intellectual disability. So that's great news. Yeah, so I'm going to go ahead and show Emma's video. The reason I love this video is because I can't explain it as well as her mother can, and Emma. And so she has quite a strong voice. She's even in a little series on Netflix. So she's quite the spokesperson for individuals with disabilities. So I'm going to remember how I was told to start this video. Thank you, Ross.
Emma is a 24-year-old, autistic. She has a seizure disorder, and she is what we refer to as an unreliable speaker. So she has some speech.
Hi, Fanny. It's been a nice day out.
She's developing more and more as she gets older and is more fluent with the letterboard and her communication. She is getting more kind of organic speech, which is actually what she wants to say. But like a lot of autistics, a lot of what she says is not what she wants to say.
Hey Emma. Hello, good morning.
Nothing said.
Say good morning.
Nothing said.
You think so? Early diagnosis, it was very intense. There's just no other way around it. It wasn't really very easy to leave the home. We had 2 other children, and she seemed to be in distress a lot of the time. There was a lot of screaming, and she had no reliable way to communicate with us. She was having seizures, and she was very unhappy, very distressed, and so were we. She had never been formally taught in school, and one of her early responses to us was that, I have been listening all of my life. Yeah, it's overwhelming to a parent, right? I remember the first Christmas after we started using the letterboard, our speech therapist, Elizabeth asked, what do you want for Christmas? And she said, oh, my parents have given me everything I need or want. What I'd really like is for my mother to read to me. But the minute we knew and she made that request, the journey began, and it was very exciting. And I asked her if she could ever see herself living in her own apartment, and she said, yes, that's absolutely what I want for my life. I want that life. And that was when we had to start thinking of everything differently. Because after someone communicates something to you, we needed to make it happen. We need to deliver on that promise. So we didn't have a lot of this figured out when we moved in, but we kind of made the jump and then we figured it out. And fortunately, early in that journey, we came across our friends at Safe and Home. So if we have someone who does not talk, or is not just going to pick up the phone and call us, we have to have a way to be able to check on her. She has to be able to reach out to us to let us know she doesn't feel good, she's out of milk, she needs groceries, she wants to see us, she's bored, she's lonely, whatever. So we knew that we needed to set up a system to do that. So we knew we needed some type of ring technology at the door. We needed mom or dad or a caregiver to get a ping to know she was safe to open the door. We wanted to know what was going on at night. We now know that when we get our report from Safe and Home, that it is not uncommon for Emma to be up 20 times between 2 and 4 a.m. Doing I don't know what. They're not cameras, which is wonderful. It protects her privacy. but we know she's up and out of her bed and doing something in the bedroom. So if she's having more seizures the next day or she's really unregulated, I now know why. The main thing we're using our Safe and Home tablet for now is for check-ins. She is used to hearing the ring, having her go over, touch the tablet, and seeing one of her friends at Safe and Home, greet her and her to get comfortable with them and have a conversation. But what we're hoping for Emma is it's going to be an opportunity for her to reach out if there is an emergency. Emma and her friends should be able to go out for a walk by themselves. They would not need us to always be going with them, that they're learning safety on the streets. But with all of them wearing the device, we know if anything goes wrong, we could always find them with the GPS system. I don't even think I understood what a big deal it is for someone to take care of their own medications. She's mastered this huge task that she needs to do to be able to live independently. So the device goes off with a beeper. She may or may not get up to it right away, but the beeper will go on until she addresses the medication issue. And mom or dad get to continue to do whatever they need to do wherever they are. We cannot fake the joy that she is experiencing in her life. She is living a self-determined life. This is what she wants, and she's doing it, and we could not be prouder. I would encourage families to talk to Safe and Home, do it earlier, and get this technology in place so the parents and the child, when they're ready to transition out, it would already be in place and they would have that confidence to do it.
Thank you. I think Emma was able to really articulate and let us know exactly what she wanted, what she needed to live that independent life and to do what we all do. We are a reliable remote support. We're consistent and we encourage decision-making skills. We are professionals that are providing this support. They are trained on the individual, what the goals are, what the state regulations are, maybe what their person-centered plan is, which again is a waiver term, but it's just talking about the individual's goals and their outcomes. And they can also get support on demand. So 24-hour support is always available. It's not that we're watching or monitoring, it's that we're supporting. And so individuals can have as much or as little support as they'd like. And this is just a bird's eye view on what that would look like. Our software, it all talks together, so you can go out and get a Ring doorbell from Amazon or Best Buy, but when you use our Ring doorbell with our other software, it all communicates with our sensors, with our tablet, with our med dispenser box. We have stove shutoffs. We have just a lot of different things that would help drive an independent life. These are some of the top solutions that I'm used to working with. Of course, this could be much broader. Some of the main individuals that I work with are really interested in that med management. Emma talked about that on her clip, how important that is. We have a lot of individuals that just have to have somebody run by to pass medication. And I know with the medication I'm on, maybe I wouldn't want someone walking in my house at 7 a.m. or at 10 p.m. to pass a medication. So this just provides that independence of some medication freedom and making those choices. And that could look a lot of different ways. That could just be a reminder. That could be we watch and support why they take the medication. Or it could just be something as simple that the medication opens up at that time to take that 8 a.m. med. And they are able to do that independently. Overnight support is a huge thing in our community. We have a lot of individuals that have staff overnight, and it's really not needed, and a lot of people don't want that. I know for myself that would be uncomfortable to have somebody sitting on my couch while I was sleeping at night if I did not really need that. So there's a lot of fear with leaving people alone overnight, and we've come up with a lot of different solutions to help support that. Visitor safety always is a big thing, especially with youth that is transitioning out of high school Who are they going to let in the door? Who's going to come to the door? And with our visitor safety, that allows mom or the care team or whoever to know exactly who's at that door. Kitchen safety, I talked about, is stove shut off, seizure management, and even after school support. I work with a lot of individuals who just have that little time right after they get off the bus that mom and dad aren't home yet, or a caregiver's not home yet, or the time in the morning. And we've been really successful. I have quite a few individuals from the town of Fishers, from HSC High School, that they are using our remote supports to be at home alone and get out on the bus. And that really makes them feel, this is normal. This is what I'm supposed to do when I'm 16 years old. And mom and dad feel a little bit better about letting them do that with our support. This is my favorite part. The whole reason I do this is how does it impact the individuals? So a lot of the things I hear is just private time, alone time. Like, we take that for granted. Individuals with disabilities and even elderly, they don't have a lot of that private time, and it's so valuable. So just feeling having that private time and feeling safe, watching what you want to watch on TV instead of maybe staff watching what they want to watch on TV. We are always here to support them. We have a friendly face. We're always available. And not having that staff at nighttime, I've already talked about that, and just feeling well-rested and safe at night. There are several apartment complexes that I work in this area, and they do sometimes feel that neighbors take advantage and might knock on their door at the middle of the night, they just feel a little unsafe, and that there are ways to prevent that. And one way is by us helping to support them, see what's going on at their front door, understanding who they're letting in, and that makes them feel a little more able to sleep and feel comfortable, and family as well. And to know that they're in control. I mean, we all want that, so that is very important. Just super briefly, this is some of our remote support services. Our tablet is just so beneficial to individuals. They can actually, it's just like a FaceTime. The tablet's only used for Safe and Home. You are not able to use it for anything else, so there's no Amazon shopping or Match.com or any of that fun stuff. It is strictly touching the tablet, and you have a live support person talking to you, and that's 24/7. You could see some of our sensor technology. Again, we can't hear, we can't see. We aren't interested. We do have indoor and outdoor cameras. Sometimes there is a need for that, and if that's what the individual feels they need, that can be provided. But we are not electronic monitoring. We are remote supports, and the two are very different. We also supply weekly reports. Again, that can look however you want. That can be what's every interaction, where are they walking around in the house, like for instance with Emma, that's how they found out she was getting up so much during the night, and why her seizure activity was increasing the next day. It can look a lot of different ways, and we can even send these reports to doctors or the care circle, just so they are on the same page with the rest of us. The assisted technologies, you could see the tablet, we have a Geo Watch. That little device that you saw Emma walk out with, that's a GeoCom, and that is fabulous for seniors as well. And what that does, it's not the lifeline. It's not, I've fallen and I can't get up and we're going to call 911. Really what it is you push a button, and there can be up to 7 numbers in your call tree. So it'll go to the first number, it'll show up on your smartphone, you'll immediately see the location of your loved one. Okay, so maybe they're turned around in Target or in the neighborhood, or they've fallen, and you can immediately start talking to them like a two-way radio. So then I have a woman that I just worked with, and she loves to garden, and her adult children were fearful of her falling out in the garden and her not getting back to a phone. She does not use a cell phone. And so this was just a source of comfort to the family and to her to continue to do what she loves. So that GeoCom is awesome. So I just wanted to wrap it up real quick. If anybody has any questions. The top name, unfortunately, Paula was unable to join us tonight, but she is our community resource representative. So she works with advocacy groups, parent groups, schools. I've been to a lot of transition fairs. I was just at one at HSC last month. That was awesome. A lot of really folks that need a lot of help, and I was so happy to be there and to support some of their needs. And I'm Patty Gant, and I am the account executive, mainly for Middle Indiana. With our growth, my area is shrinking and shrinking. I'm down to just a couple counties, which is a good thing. But please call me, any question, any concern, even just to talk through a situation. I'm definitely here for you, and most importantly, I'm definitely here for the individual that could benefit from some independence. Thank you.
Thank you, Patty. I'm going to do a shout out for parents who might have a young person or an adult living at home. You know, there's a dignity of risk, and you don't want to stay home and quit your job because you have to care for someone, because the more you care for them, the more you will have to. And any provider in the room will share that, you know, there's a gap between the services that are available for folks and what an individual who wants more independence could be achieving. And Safe and Home can be a great solution. I know we have an individual who, the biggest challenge is she can't read, which provides a safety issue for some time. They have a pen that can scan text and will audibly read the text to the individual. She can understand, receptive language skills are very strong, but just can't read, and that can be a pretty big challenge for someone. So I think some of the technologies, Patty started by saying, you know, if you need it, we can figure out a way to support it, whether it's seizure activity, urinary output. I mean, there is just an unlimited amount of ways that people can get remote supports, and like you said, help people feel more in control of their life, which at the end of the day is what we want to empower in all people. So thank you again, Patty, for coming. Please feel free to reach out to her if there's anything she can do to answer some questions. Our next guest speaker, Tendra Duff from Guardian Care. Another great opportunity to learn about a different slant, if you will, on service delivery and what's available. And so I'm excited to have Tendra share with you guys what's going on with their organization.
So my name's Tendra Duff. I am community liaison for Guardian Care. And what Guardian Care, why they service the family support, CIH waiver, we service the aged and disabled and traumatic brain injury waiver. So there's multiple, if you're not familiar, there's multiple different waivers within the state that service different populations, some kind of overlap depending on the medical complexities. So what Guardian Care does, we service those from elderly, from pediatric all the way to the elderly population. It's those that are more medically complex, so trachs, G-tubes, Malones, ventilators, those that can't have the independence like Patty was talking about, but that have to stay either within their home, and the parents need to stay at home with them because there's no other place besides the hospital to support them. And if you've ever dealt with insurance, you know that it's very hard to get insurance to prove long stays. So then they're sent home, you know, once they become medically stable. So with Guardian Care, though, we are able to employ those parents to be home paid caregivers. And Guardian Care actually started in 2020 with David Mitchell. He saw the need more so at that time with the elderly population, and some of the family members were having to stay home to take care of their parents and stuff. But Patty's Safe and Home would be phenomenal for, you know, certain populations like that that are able to live independently but need that little bit of help and stuff. Some of them do have more medical complexities. But then he saw the need more so in the pediatric population, where they can't live independently. There's no nursing homes for them. That's where I came into play. I have identical twin boys who both have Down syndrome. They were born 10 weeks early. We've spent 8 months and 4 months in the NICU. One came home vent dependent, trach dependent, G-tube dependent. The other one was at the time just G-tube dependent. You can see the little guy here in the isolette. That's Caden. He was born at 2 pounds. He spent 4 months in the NICU. And then the other guy in the stroller is Trenton. He's the one that came home vent dependent, trach dependent, G-tube. And so what these families are facing, if you can see all the medical equipment on the stroller, we have oxygen, we have a pulse ox, we have a ventilator, we have an apnea machine, there's a feeding tube somewhere on there. So trying to have somebody else come into your home to do all of that is nearly impossible. So a lot of these families are left where one of the was working parents is now not working and staying at home to help care for these kids. And so a lot of it's medically complex. So we have trachs, G-tubes, and loans and all that. And what the aged and disabled waiver does is where we can hire, most of the time it's parents. Sometimes it could be grandma that's coming over or an older sibling or something to be a paid caregiver. That we also can help with like home delivered meals. We have a family that their kid is G-tube dependent, but yet they want them to have a wider variety of meals, so they're getting pureed meals on the home delivered meals, so they can have a wider variety versus some of the prepackaged meals that they have that are a little bit limited. Home modifications, I can attest to that as we moved to a house that had stairs with no sides, and so one kid stepped and fell off. When my son was trach dependent, we needed a temperature controlled room. Well, the upstairs was super, super hot, so we were able to get a heating unit that would air condition both the bottom floor and the upper floor. So if you need it, it's there. We can help. It's just different ways to go about it. You know, equipment, you need adaptive equipment, you need sometimes bath chairs, daily sitting chairs, wheelchairs, and all that stuff. And so for the pediatric population, there's no the financial requirements waived. A lot of it's like if you were to qualify for a skilled nurse, then you're going to qualify for the A&T waiver. As your age changes, and sometimes the qualifications will change. And it's more so a lot of times if you need help with those 3 adult daily living needs, then a lot of those in the elderly population, there's the financial requirement, but they're qualifying for the aged and disabled. So, you know, if you think or have a question on whether or not you qualify, SECOA is the one that's locally. So there's 16 areas on aging and disability around the state. So depending on what county you live in, on which area on aging and disability would handle that. But locally it's SECOA. They have a resource number that you can call, and you can call and say, hey, I would like to inquire whether my child or parent or somebody qualifies for the aged and disabled waiver. So that would be your first step, is just to call them to see if they qualify. If they do qualify, they'll get you set up with a case manager that'll write a detailed plan of care. They can add attendant care to that plan of care, and then Guardian Care can hire you as a paid caregiver. And so with Guardian Care, you're not just a number. We're not just hiring you as a paid caregiver. We also provide other supports, like if you need help with home delivered meals, if you need help with adaptive equipment. I just was talking to a parent this morning whose son is 2.5, and they're going to age out of First Steps at age 3, and I'm like, I'm very well versed in, you know, rights law when you start with independent education evaluate, like the IEPs, 504 plans. So we have a lot of people on staff that are versed in multiple different things. So we're not just paying you. You're not just a number on our payroll. We're going above and beyond and trying to meet you where your need is. So any questions? This is my first time doing it, so I'm honored to be here. Thank you for asking me. It's been an honor for me. I started the end of January and February, and it's been an honor to help these families and for them to express how much it's made a difference. For 6 years, you know, I was not able to contribute to anything. We were running to Cincinnati 1 to 2 times a week. We had 15 therapies at one time, 1 week, with both boys and everything, and so there was no way. You make it, you get by because you have to, but to be able to help support the family and to be able to, we're taking our first family vacation next week. So it's just, there's a lot of things that this can help with the families. I had a mom tell me this is my one that's impacted me the most is she told me she could get out of an abusive relationship because she could now financially support herself and her child. So it's just a huge game changer for a lot of families, and I would encourage anybody, feel free to reach out to SECOA, feel free to reach out to Guardian Care. Myself, I'm more than happy. My phone's going off from 5 in the morning till 3, anytime I'm available to answer questions or to help. So, anyone have questions or anything?
Thank you for being here. Let's give all of our guest speakers a round of applause. Thank you guys for your time. Just as a point of clarification, a lot of times you'll hear us talk about the CIH and family support waiver, which are more intended for folks who have a primary diagnosis of an intellectual or developmental disability. If you're interested in the traumatic brain injury waiver or aged and disabled waiver, those are actually under the umbrella of the Division of Aging. SECOA, which stands, it's an acronym for Central Indiana Council of Aging, serves Hamilton County as one of the donut counties of Central Indiana and Marion County. They're a great resource, but I absolutely just adored talking to Tendra when we first met to learn more about Guardian Care and your experiences. And your children are adorable, all 3 of them. And so I encourage you to reach out to her. And your story is similar to so many people who just, aren't sure where to go. And so finding that the right door to go through sometimes to get support. And I appreciate you sharing your knowledge with us. That's it for our guest speakers. Now we move into committee updates. And I'd like to open it up just generally for some discussion amongst us as members. Is that okay, Ross? Look, I'm looking at Ross and Kay because I don't want to get in trouble. Obviously, us being a codified committee brings with it some responsibility and just some things that we need to do as far as rule of order goes. It feels so official when you have to call a meeting to order and read minutes that you didn't even know were embedded in your agenda. But amongst us, what we need to figure out is, well, just to discuss how committees work, right? So we have the Fishers Advisory Committee on Disability, but within that, you guys are all appointed to sort of your special corner of the world or areas that we've identified as ongoing areas for growth in the community of Fishers, mostly from the My Point of View Day, what comes out of Fishers Disability Awareness Month in March, and those kinds of things. So while each week we will have an opportunity to hear from you as the chair or the co-chair of your committee, I think it's also important for us to just discuss how issues get filtered through us, right? And Russ, feel free to jump in here at any time. I know at least in the beginning stages as we kind of feel our way through this, Cecilia and I have talked about wanting to be involved in that because it's going to be hard if we're all running rogue and, talking to everybody about everything. So for example, if a local employer had 100 jobs available and they wanted to promise 15 of those jobs to people with intellectual and developmental disabilities, we would get them to the experts, Chrissy Pogue and Michelle Stelz, who are the co-chairs of the employment group, right? But we would want to also make sure that we are involved in that and how are we going to vet that information and involve the right people from the city, from this committee, and from the community. Does anybody have questions about how that would work? It's pretty much how we've operated in the past, but we're trying to solidify our processes a little bit. And I know some of you have not been in really a committee role previous because we didn't have it so structured before. The second thing is how are we going to engage people who are interested in being on your committee? So Darcy, for example, you are in charge of the networking and social opportunities. And when we have opportunities, that's something we would certainly involve you with. But there may be people in the community at large who would want to be a part of your committee. Now, I have been instructed by the city, I believe, I'll look at Kay so she can tell me if I'm in line here, that if we are going to have committee meetings outside of the greater Fishers Advisory Committee on Disability, we do need to announce those and assure that people have the opportunity to participate in that. So I'm asking committee, is that right, Kay? Why are you giving me the side eye?
I'm looking at Ross.
Yeah, so Kelly, thank you. And just to chime in a little bit, so obviously if someone like the employment, two chairs wanted to sit down and meet, obviously would not have to create, kind of an agenda or anything. But, when there's some intent for two or more people to really sit down and get together, we will have to create, and it's just a one-page document that we would put on the Fishers Advisory Committee for Disability on your agenda page. We'll just need 48-hour notice and the location of where those people are meeting at. So this is very similar to in the previous years where March Disability Awareness Month committee met, whether it was in a city facility or off-site. That just provided information so the general public can still participate.
So we just want to keep the general public it's not like you guys can't talk without a one-pager, ever. But if we have an intent to accomplish something under the umbrella of that committee, we would want to make sure we post that.
That is
Correct.
correct. Yep.
Now, I also want to sort of send out a call, I suppose, to the community at large and people who are here with us tonight and people who for a very long time have been very active and involved, and not only thank you for that continued involvement, but to call you forward, like not tonight, but call you into engagement with the committee leads that you see up here, because we do want people to be involved, and we've had a number of folks who have been very involved. So in the areas that we're going to go through tonight, if you're here or if you're watching, I want you to think about those areas and which particular committee you might like to align yourself with. That does not mean, I'll pick on Yolanda, who's here from Janus tonight, and Tim White, who they are already natural leaders in Hamilton County with transportation. I would say that they know more about public transportation and especially how it impacts people with disabilities than anybody else in Hamilton County that I've ever worked with. You guys should be a part of the Transportation Committee. However, they also have expertise in other areas, so it's not like you have to only give input to one committee, but we would love to see some folks step up and be aligned with committees so that we can kind of, get some momentum behind some initiatives that we've continued to talk about. Are there any questions from committee members about how we would move forward with that?
So if we decided to have a subcommittee meeting with several people that we would like to be on the committee and talk about this, we would need to put together like an agenda and submit that to whom?
You could submit that, two things. One, you would want to make sure that Cecilia and I, or I,
Okay.
that one of us is certainly involved with that. We don't want to run your committee meeting, but we'd love the opportunity to be a part of it.
Sure.
And I would say we could submit that agenda to either Ross or Kay.
Okay, thank you.
And so for our employment subcommittee, we have our business networking group, which is not a meeting, but an activity with same thought, Ross, that those would have to be public, which is not a bad thing, but because that's another method of communication, that type of stuff, but that would have to go through that process as well.
I think that
Yeah,
would
they
be the best way
Okay.
moving forward after this committee was created with an ordinance. I think
Okay.
that is correct. That we
Yeah,
should
it's
proceed
open.
with that, and those dates are likely established, and so having 40-hour notice for the general public and put on a calendar, I think that is it's putting our best foot forward. So.
Okay. Yeah, they were already open meetings, and we just kind of had an email group, so that would also help with involvement
I think
as
it'd be
well.
great to get that word out publicly too, because there may be employers that just don't even realize that's happening. Any other questions about how we move forward from here? Shelby?
Since I was more involved on the employment side of things and some of the committees that they've mentioned, now that I am with the arts and entertainment and kind of spearheading that, as I look at and think about who would be a strong committee member, a strong participant on something like that, I'm assuming we want to stay in Fishers proper, correct? Not Hamilton County or,
I certainly would never turn someone away from the greater community at large, but this is the Fishers Advisory Committee on Disability, and I would certainly say that that would be our focus. There are initiatives that will certainly bleed over into surrounding communities in the Hamilton County area, but this is particularly focused on the Fishers community.
I have one thing about the transportation, because I am going to give a little presentation. I was looking to gather all of those people that have a transportation interest, because certainly that's not my forte. I've just been on the committee, and so I am looking to enlist a lot of people who know what this current situation is. I have one meeting that I've had, and I'm helping Go-Go Bus. I don't see her here. So it's going to be something where don't assume that the person sitting behind the mic right here, right now, is an authority on anything. We're coordinators, we're a voice, and please join us, because it's not going to get done unless I have a lot of other people sitting at a table with me, and we work together to come up with something. So.
Good point. Any other input on how we move forward from here? So before I ask for you guys to give committee reports and what's going on in your area and what events might be coming up, again, just reminding those of you who are listening and those of you who are present tonight to think about, as we go through these areas, what committee you might be interested in. I think the other thing to think about is we may learn over time that there needs to be another committee, right, or another area that needs exploration. Certainly, if that is the case, we would always encourage Cecilia, for you guys to talk to Cecilia and I about how that might form over time. So we already heard from Wilbur, and Wilbur Sutton, who had to leave a little early this evening, is in charge of housing. The second committee area, and we'll just go right to you, Stacy, with accessibility and transportation, and she has a little presentation for us.
So what I did was I was assigned by Kelly and Cecilia to be the transportation liaison to the committee. And I was given a few things that were happening ongoing as I stepped into that role. And one of these was, I don't know if anybody is familiar, but it was a 6-month trial with May Mobility. So if you see this flyer that's on the particular slide that I have, it was handed out. There was some information that went out. We partnered, and I met with these folks just as they were leaving, actually. May Mobility did leave. They had a 6-month trial period in Indianapolis, working with an Indigo area, and then we got the opportunity to have them come with these autonomous cars and be in our area for 6 months. So it was paid for with grants. I believe Toyota was one of the sponsors. There is a website if anybody wants to see what we used and how it was communicated out there. There were also routes that this took, okay? So, oops, let me go here. Gotta go back in, sorry. Got it. Okay, so let me back up here and just talk about what it was a 6-month trial. So why we did it, again, if you're given the opportunity, and we're looking at different ways to have transportation, well, why not? So we started as part of the pilot. So January through June 17th, that's when the funds ran out, and that's when the facility they were using was the old plumbing building, and they just set up kind of a command center in there that had to shut down. So it was open to anyone. It wasn't just those with a disability, but one car was dedicated to wheelchair passengers, fully dedicated. For those anybody who wants to see, I have a video, and we took a tour of everything. It's 22 minutes, so I knew that was not going to work for the meeting, but I certainly will be sharing that with whoever wants to join me on the transportation. And so it operated on a very limited route. So let me show you the route. So if you think of where we are right now, this is this circle, okay? So each of these was a stop, like the library and around the corner apartments, that sort of thing. This went down to, if you know South Point Village, which is on Lantern Road. So this whole route would have cars, and there was a map online where you could see these shifting, and the car would pick someone up, and at 25 miles per hour, that's all the cars would be able to go. That's key, because I want to mention what happened there. Then each car would pick someone up, and they would keep going all day. It would start, okay? So there was no service, as you can see, on Saturday and Sunday. They only did this pilot 8 a.m. to 8 p.m., Monday through Friday. So that was key as well. So if you look at the data on use, that's a very, very limited route. You could only get on and get off. That was not a door-to-door situation on transportation. And it was unique. So some people were very scared of, I'm not going to get in a car that's driving itself. That was a new thing for people. It was really interesting to see when I was on that day. We had 2 riders that did take the shuttle to work every single day. I believe they were going from South Point Village to Target where they worked. So now that that's gone, that opportunity for them is gone. So it was necessary for these 2 people. And the wheelchair van, ironically, it did on that flyer have a number to call it, but nobody ever did. So that was a gap that might have been seen there. Although, if you look at the limited area of the number of riders, someone would have to get with a wheelchair to one of those stops and then get, the van or whatever it was. So those were factors, as you can see. So as I talked to the folks from Maine Mobility, I said, okay, do you see this as a success? Do you feel successful in this? What do you say? What have we learned? And they were not able to say and actually give this presentation. I had hoped for that. But they said there's nothing that fails in these trials. They do these all over the country. They have multiple different types of cars, multiple different kinds of programs, one coming up with vans. So they take the data and they say, okay, this was a very limited route, just like what we said. There weren't many riders. We usually do a trial for a year, not 6 months. So that was another factor for them. We also had a period of time whereby we were on lockdown with COVID, or COVID became an issue. So there were lots of different factors in this. And what they said is they don't want it to be goodbye, but a see you later. And they gave advice about the fact that we should collect more data on the quantify the need and the scope and the type of things that we do already have, in Hamilton County, in Fishers, and what is the possible route that would make sense to fulfill needs? Well, certainly with our folks at South Point Village that have intellectual disabilities and have jobs, this was a factor for them, and it was valuable. Is there another need? If we have, for instance, as Wilbur left, a need with new housing that's going to go in, affordable housing, we have new types of housing, how will any kind of transportation partnering with that be valuable? So they see it as we're early in the stages, that's what Maine Mobility told me, and they would like to come back and talk to us at a different point now that we know what they offer, and to keep these conversations ongoing. So we also need to identify partners. Purdue University had an opportunity to continue the program for us here in Fishers. We did not get that funding. It was not available to us. But they're very, very interested because of their engineering programs and things like that with these autonomous vehicles and with Maine Mobility. So there's future here of possible funding whereby we can get the cost of a ride. Right now it was free, but a cost of a ride being, the goal being $3 each way. That's what's going on in some other cities that Maine Mobility operates in. So I just wanted to say, this is what I learned. there's so many other things I didn't put in this particular presentation. I did want to give their statement about, hey, don't say goodbye to us. We have other ideas. We just need funding, and your timing and the route are going to be the key things. So that's all I had. Are there any questions? Okay. And again, I'm going to put out the call for, I know that the one thing down at the bottom I didn't mention. Transportation question. Can it be included in the present housing study? Can we have, you know, if for instance, if you have affordable housing need, will you have transportation? Will you need transportation? If we can build something into that disability affordable housing survey about transportation and the need for it, maybe the type can be something of a drill down later, but that was where they said collect more data. It would be an ideal situation. I don't know who answers that or who would help put something like that into the existing study.
Thank you, Stacy. I'll make sure that we connect you specifically with urban partners who are doing the housing study, and we can see what additional data they can collect. We have noticed in general that data regarding accessible housing in itself is very lean, so they are trying the best they can to provide us as much information as possible, but I'll make sure we put you in contact with urban partners specifically.
Next, we have employment, Chrissy Pogue and Michelle Stelz. Turn your microphone on.
Currently, we are delving a little bit more into information to be presented to employers and future employees for the reverse job fair that's going to be held October 7th at Grace Fisher's Church in Fishers. Obviously, we are looking for employers and people within the city that are looking for a job or a new job or better employment. The sky's the limit. We don't really have a cap on how many people we want there. So we're encouraging service providers to work with the employers that they're working with as well as the clients that they're working with to help get registered for that.
And then we will continue once we kind of take a summer siesta, but for our business networking group, we'll get that back going and started and announced and all that kind of formal stuff during the school year. So that way we can partner with the schools.
And can you tell us the date again of the reverse job fair?
October 7th.
Okay, it's October 7th, and October is Disability Employment Awareness Month.
Right.
And one of the things that Cecilia and I have talked about is trying really hard to not just make awareness of disability needs and disability supports in the Fishers community a March-only event, but to make it an always present in our community awareness and effort. And so one of the ways we'll start doing that is looking at October for employment issues. If you know of an employer that might be interested in just listening or hearing more about opportunities, I would encourage you to connect with Michelle and Chrissy. Any questions for them in the world of employment? The next area is community supports and services. Kelly Hartman, that's me. Well, first and foremost, I wanted to again thank Safe and Home as well as Guardian Care for just expanding our perspective on ways that we can support our folks. We do realize that when you're looking at supports and services, when it comes down to available resources and providers to even provide service in the waiver program, it's really challenging. And so finding some alternative ways to connect people to resources is always helpful. One thing that I'm going to continue to highlight that's happening in Fishers, which is new, is Janus has a day program which is focused on a 4-to-1 ratio primarily and doing a lot of community outings. It is housed in South Point Village. You do not have to live in South Point Village to participate in that. If you have questions about that, certainly can reach out to committee members that are really active with us, which are Yolanda and Tim, who are here all the time. but Janus is operating out of the South Point Village location for that. Additionally, the Outside the Box has received a letter of intent with the City of Fishers to have a day program within the rec center. As those plans are being fulfilled, we are also learning that Outside the Box is intending to start a day program here in Fishers sooner than later. We're not going to wait for the rec center, but to build a bridge program. They've had a donor who's willing to give them some really great office space short-term to house a day program. So we're looking at hopefully this fall to start considering day programming here in Fishers. You know, nothing's official until your board of directors says it's official, but I would encourage anyone who's interested in that, if you were not already given an opportunity to complete a survey, which is getting names, emails, and intent, looking at what time of the day you'd want a program to start, how many days a week, whether you're ready for it now or in a year now or 2 years from now. If you did not get a link to that survey and you're interested, feel free to reach out to me directly and I will get you that link. Any other questions or comments on community supports and services? Any of you guys have anything going on that you want to talk about specifically in that realm? Next, we have recreation and arts and culture. Shelby.
This quite possibly could be the shortest presentation imaginable. But with that said, Shelby Slowick, HR Associate Vice President for Conner Prairie. Obviously, Conner Prairie is much involved in the arts and entertainment and culture aspects of the Fishers community. And since I joined Conner Prairie about 7 years ago, what I'm really seeing is any event, any program, any recreation that is offered, at least in our organization, but I'm assuming other organizations as well. The first focus is how we can make it accessible to all people with varying abilities. Case in point, I think maybe you've heard of Symphony on the Prairie. We had one main cemented path that would allow you to go down and put out your picnic spread. We realized that that was very, very limiting for those who were wheelchair bound or had difficulties walking, regardless of the reason why. And so we have added more poured paths to our various places on the grounds that people like to get to. So as I look at arts, recreation, and involving all of our community members in participating in those things easier than what it is currently. I look at Spark Fishers. We've participated in Juneteenth events, and we even had Arts on the Prairie. So I'm looking at all of those in a scope of what can we do from maybe easy fixes to maybe some more challenging fixes to make our community of Fishers as accessible as it possibly can be. And I don't think there's ever an end product to that. So here's my call out. All people in the arts, in the entertainment, I welcome you to give me a call at Conner Prairie. And I'm going to give you my direct phone number. It's 317-214-4730. I will repeat that. 317-214-4730. And I plan on making it the most exciting, fabulous committee we could have. Thank you.
Thank you, Shelby. Sort of in the vein of what Stacy shared, as well as Shelby's very enthusiastic call out to the community, I want us to keep in mind that those of us who walk and talk and sometimes do so without many challenges might not always have an eye for what accessibility means. And I want us to really work as a community to be more preventative and proactive, not reactive. I know recently it was shared with me, some areas of accessibility, and I don't want us to always bring problems to this committee in a public way, but to know that we can funnel those things in a conversation to Ross, so that there's things that we can look at, so that all of us can just see, wow, this is so cool that we have these accessibility things happening in a preventative and proactive manner, and not so much being like, these are the issues and we need to fix them, right? So keep that in mind. We are certainly getting there. And Connor Prairie has been a leader in that, and we thank you for being a bright and shining beacon of hope over there for folks to have access to things in our community. Lastly, on our group, we have networking and social opportunities. Ms. Darcy Keith.
Thank you, Ms. Kelly. I'm sorry I'm not going to be maybe as exciting as Shelby, but my name is Darcy Keith. I am an individual who's experienced brain injury for over 30 years. I'm also on the Brain Injury Advisory Council for Brain Injury Association of America. I'm a business analyst by paid job. My side hustle is my professional speaker. I love and very passionate about this opportunity, so I'm very excited about the social opportunities and networking. Some of the things that we are doing or working on, we're working with the various organizations like Action Club, Thrive. I'm going to meet with them individually and find out, okay, what type of members do they have? What type of gaps do we have? How can we support them and their membership? Do they need to get their events out so that everybody knows a little bit more about them? Some of the Action Club events that are coming up, they're having a monthly meeting at Southport Village on the July 18th, July 22nd, they're doing Ice Cream Social, different things like that. We want to make sure that everybody knows what's going on to support those organizations with disabilities. Also, for our younger folks that are in Best Buddies, I've been in contact with the Best Buddy executive director saying, hey, you know what are the chapters doing in this area? How can we engage and get the youth involved that are still in school, as well as then Thrive is right after that. And there's a gap in between there. We're going to try to find out some social opportunities for those folks that are in that gap. So I would love to have you part of my committee. It's kind of like the recreation a little bit, you know, a little social networking. But that's kind of, I want how we can support those organizations and how we can get more people involved.
Thank you, Darcy. I would also encourage anyone who's interested in what's going on this summer. The Department of Parks and Rec did reach out to Outside the Box as a partner who was able to do training with all of their volunteers and all the folks that are working with summer camps this summer. They are working really hard to be prepared to be more inclusive and accessible for all kids in the camps this summer through Parks and Rec, so make sure you check those out if you're interested in additional opportunities. Now for staff communications, Mr. Ross Hillary.
Thanks, Kelly. I did have a visual I wanted to provide to the group as a whole. So just as a little bit of a background, in 2016, the City of Fishers did accomplish its very first comprehensive plan, which this is called Fishers 2040. We're all pretty familiar with it as staff, but hopefully this group too can make sure that they are familiar with that. As a city, we are required to update that in every 5 years. So in 2021, we did do our first 5-year update. With that, we were able to add additional action items. But we noticed as staff that this is a living document that should be looked at annually, not every 5 years, to make sure it keeps everyone accountable. So with that, we will be doing an annual update before City Council. So we don't change any action items at this annual update, but we do see where we're at as a whole and as a community. Fishers 2040 is available at the City of Fishers website. Type in Fishers 2040, it'll pop up. But with that, any organization that has goals or strategic plans or something that the group is aiming towards, we have decided to pull all of those committees or subcommittees or commissions into that comprehensive plan to help not only staff but also that committee keep themselves accountable, but really to help keep staff accountable. So this is just a 2-page spread. It is part of the agenda. Gives a little bit of an overview of what the Fishers Advisory Committee on Disability is. Talks a little about the history back from 2012. Talks about the ordinance that was created in February of 2022. But on that second page, this puts the committee's duties, powers, and procedures into the exact same format that the Fishers 2040 is, and really shows you the action items that this committee is focusing on, but also provides the same action status. A lot of what this committee is doing is what we are considering maintenance, so it's a currently ongoing and repeating goal to be maintained throughout the future. So you'll just see here that everything that this committee already does and works on, including directions for March Disability Awareness Month, providing strategic direction and guidance on the ADA transition plan, and any program similar to that for the city, representing a diverse need and interest of the people with intellectual and development disabilities for the city, and so forth. And what we will do as staff will provide you with this update annually. But wanted to show this before you tonight. And this will go in front of City Council as well as Councilor Coble. She will likely see this in August, and then this will be codified as part of the Fishers 2040 later this year. To be able to see that again, it is part of the agenda. With that, I did want to provide some information from Director of Planning and Zoning, which is Megan Vukasic. She did want me to provide that the accessible housing study is progressing as planned. We, as staff, we've collected data from 16 local assisted living housing communities within Fishers and outside of Fishers in Hamilton County. Urban Partners, who is the consultant, is completing interviews with local stakeholders, and they are on track to deliver the report by the end of August. But as I said earlier, if someone like Stacy or someone else would still wants to be in contact, please reach out to Megan or myself, and we'll make sure that we put you in contact with Urban Partners. We have asked them to incorporate the home waivers into the report and to help define various accessible housing options. I am wearing another hat tonight. Marissa Deckert, who is the Assistant Director Fishers Parks, was unavailable, but she did want me to highlight a couple ongoing and upcoming events. So Fishers Parks does offer a story walk, which rotates to a new park each month, which is accessible from dawn to dusk. This is a passive activity that can be done at your own pace. You follow the trail and read a book as part of your walk, and that is in partnership with Hamilton East Public Library. Throughout the summer, we have Tuesday concerts that begin earlier this year and ends at the end of July. This is at the AMP just behind us. You will likely hear a concert start in about 10 minutes tonight. But those concerts do have wheelchair accessible seating as well as companion seats available on request, wheelchair accessible picnic tables, assisted living devices that are available at request at the Parks tent, sensory bags available as well, and to follow the Thrive Social Club, who also attend these events. We also have Wednesday concerts over the lunch hour, which is available to all ages. Sensory bags are also available at the Parks tent. Upcoming events to keep in mind, these are all available on the Parks website, but one she wanted to highlight was Monsoon Madness, which is July 30th in Holland Park. It's from 12 to 3. They will have a sensory-friendly no splash zone, water theme activities without water, as well as the ability to use the splash pad, and sensory bags, again, will be available at the Parks tent. The next event that they'd like to highlight is on September 17th, which is the Glow in the Park, a family night. Will be also located right here behind us at the Nickel Plate District Amphitheater from 8 to 10. Sensory-friendly and low-volume social distance spaces will be available away from the main stage for spray paint experiences along with close friends and family. And as I said earlier, sensory bags are available at the request. Ongoing partnerships that Fishers Parks has, HRC transition students have the ability to weekly volunteer at the Agri Park as well as the Maker Playground located at Hub and Spoke. An ongoing partnership with Opportunities for Positive Growth, again with similar opportunities for volunteering at the Agri Park and the Maker Playground. Janice has a grant opportunity through the Fishers Art and Cultural Commission for Maker Playground memberships. Yolanda is here if you'd like to know any more information about that. And Fishers Parks is also a partner with Culture City, which is an ongoing training that provided to both staff and any volunteers on how best to assist guests with sensory processing disorders. And like I said, those sensory bags are available to check out at any one of the park events. Those sensory bags includes a backpack, noise-reducing headphones, fidget toys, communication cards, and weighted lap pads. So Marissa Decker is the Assistant Director of Fishers Parks. As I said, all these events are currently listed on the Fishers website. Happy to answer questions about that. Just moving around, there aren't any questions on that. Please do familiarize yourself with the agenda and the strategic items that we presented. But with that, I will hand it over to Samantha Weiskup. She's with the Community and Public Relations Department to give a couple updates.
On? Oh, okay, now it is. Actually, we just want to check in with the committee as October Disability Employment Awareness Month is coming. We wanted to check in to see what your guys' plans are for this. Is it going to be a bigger series like MDAM, or what your guys' thoughts were as we begin to create our schedule for the next few months. We want to make sure that we have as much time as possible to promote this for you guys and support in any way that we can.
Well, I have never heard it called MDAM, but I do like that. Those of you who don't know, MDAM is March Disability Awareness Month. I would say specifically getting with Michelle and Chrissy would be really, really helpful. I do think we probably have some pretty rich opportunity for blog posts from people who not only have experienced positivity in our community as employers, but positivity as being employed by some of those folks, and job coaches, and just really learning more about the system. I think there's a lot of opportunity there. Aside from the reverse job fair, and I'm most certain a disability business networking meeting that month, what else might we see? Or what, I guess we can also ask, what else would we like to see? Because we still have time to pull some things together.
Yeah, I say, this was the kind of the first time we've been able to plan anything for October. COVID has delayed our reverse job fair a couple times. Yeah. So I guess hadn't really thought about making it a thing because that was maybe almost too much to hope for, but I think we're hopefully on that way. So yeah, I think we'd like to get with you about how we can do some of that and our other partners and tap into some of our job coaches and other stories. So yeah.
I think too, with this being the first time we were actually going to be able to physically hold the reverse job fair, we were afraid to spread ourselves too thin, planning too much for that. So that we thought that the committee on the networking group and the reverse job fair for October this year, and I think once we get our feet into it, that we can be able to maybe do some more employment training or, you know, something like that in future years.
But kind of like how we started the March events was, it kind of was a little bit, and then it's kind of picked up steam. So I think to even introduce the idea that that's what October is, and then be able to grow it from there.
Awesome. And some of the things that you guys had planned in March, we did move to October, right? Is that the reverse job fair or? Okay.
I think it's also worthy of noting that the Division of Disability and Rehabilitative Services at the state level has focused on some top priorities for how they're redesigning their system and are setting strategic goals. And employment was the number one priority, with some pretty big goals for getting folks with intellectual and developmental disabilities employed in our community. And so we have some really strong employment providers that could provide a depth of knowledge, because I think that's the biggest thing, is helping people understand where This is Fishers would be a great way to get that information out. Because we can talk till we're blue in the face in this room about we need employers and we need people to hear differently the message, but it's not the people in this room that we're really trying to reach. It is the community at large that has so much potential in getting more folks employed and employed differently. Because right now, when no one can find any staff anywhere, there's so much opportunity for our folks to get jobs. We need the employers to have an open ear. So I think any way that you can help us with that would be really helpful.
Awesome.
I think the other thing I just thought of was middle of September is Direct Support Professionals Week. And so we've talked a lot about our caregivers and our support, our paid support staff. So maybe even just something that week, just to talk about what that is. We've tapped into it a couple last year with 2020-ish with our March Disability Awareness Month. I think it was 2020 was the focus on caregivers and support staff. So that might be a time to highlight.
And when was that? I'm sorry.
It's the middle, I think it's one of the middle weeks of September. I can get you those dates for sure.
And with these, are we thinking about City Hall being gone and where we'd like to host some of these things? Just a thought.
That could
to
just
get
be,
thinking.
that could just even be more of like a, this is Fisher's Block.
Okay.
Like that.
You mean like
that,
posting.
Not necessarily a
Okay.
thing, like an event necessarily. But the reverse job fair will be at the Grace Church in Fisher. So we
Grace
already
Church?
have- mhm. So we
You
already
said
have-
Grace or Gray? I'm
Grace.
sorry. Grace.
So
Okay.
we already have a location for that.
Awesome.
Samantha, I have one. I was approached by a lady named Heather French, who is head of the fetal alcohol syndrome, I have to, disorder. She's president of that. And Fetal Alcohol Syndrome Day is September 9th. She's been asked to be on our September 6th meeting here to give a presentation about fetal alcohol syndrome and things like that, and then the day. She's also asked if they could put out that it would be, Mayor Fadness designates it or something like that as Fetal Alcohol Syndrome Day. I don't know how that works, but she is, I did send an email out and it seemed to be, yes, let's have that at least on the agenda for September, see what we can do with the city. So I would like to connect with you on that if we may. Her whole family has been wonderful, and there evidently is a community of those with children with fetal alcohol syndrome that meet and things like that. So their story is broad, and they have been interviewed and broadly, and I just would like to mention, and we can see how it fits in maybe with
Yeah.
some of the publicity.
And I'm happy to set up, Kara Hall is our marketing manager, and she runs our This is Fisher's
Okay.
page and blogs. So I'd be happy to schedule something so we can all get together and chat about that.
That sounds great. Thank you.
And can I jump on that too?
Mhm.
So like the Fisher's Blog, or the, I'm sorry, the This is Fisher's Blog, I'd like to also highlight some events that the Action Club's doing that's coming up in July. How much time ahead do you need?
That is definitely a Kara question. I can get
Okay.
you her info and you
Okay.
can check in with her. She's pretty good about lining them up in a lot of time out, but she
Okay.
can make adjustments and move things around as needed. She's done that for me quite often.
Okay.
So yeah, I think just getting with her and getting those ideas and then seeing where it fits in.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
I do think, just to circle back on the DSP awareness, that week is September 12th through the 18th. And oftentimes now, I'm seeing that DSP, which is direct support professional, specific to our field of working with intellectual and developmental disabilities. You'll also see a reference to DSW, which is direct support worker, which may refer more to folks who have complex medical care issues and folks who are working in-home with their loved ones. And so understand DSP and DSW. The challenge with DSPs obviously is that our rates are set by the legislature, which means oftentimes that impacts drastically what people can be paid. I had a situation last week. I have staff that are supporting a young man. They make $14 an hour. The young man was just employed in the community making $18.50. So he's making $4.50 more than the staff that support him to live his best life. So lots of things there. We like to give all the props we can. I'm going to give a shout out to Opportunities for Positive Growth too, who has the only not-for-profit sort of housed with their staff, who actually, it's a charitable organization that helps DSPs who, can't keep their job unless they get their tire fixed or their air conditioning busts or something. So it's a DSP, what's it called? Help Over Hurdles. There you go.
And it's statewide. It's not just any provider specific and that type of thing. But I think that would be a good week to.
It sprouted out of you.
It has sprouted out of us. To highlight some of the things that are going on from the task force on the DSW stuff, so we can get some more information for you.
Right. Also, just a question, Ross, that did come to me after. On the 2040, Fisher's 2040, that if we review that and we have specific suggestions or questions, we just refer those to you?
That is correct, yeah. Again, Those action items are part of the duties, powers, and procedures under the city ordinance that was utilized to create this. But yes, if there's anything on there, staff has created the statuses, notes, and who leads and supports those action items. But yeah, please feel free to shoot me an email if you have any concerns about that. Again, this is not going in front of city council until later this summer.
Okay, great. Any other comments, questions, input, suggestions? Great, then we can call this meeting to a close and adjourn.
The only thing I'll add as staff is our next meeting is scheduled for September 6th, 2020 at 5:30.
2022.
Yeah, September 6th, 2022. Sorry, I'm not sure what I said. At 5:30. Currently, though, the location is to be determined, so we will make sure that that is updated on the city website. As you will, most of you know, the lifespan of this building is coming to an end. So this is our last advisory committee meeting here. But like I said, the next meeting is scheduled for September 6th at 5:30.
Thank you, guys.